sadness, though. Half the time they're trying to make you feel they're just...
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Gravel Trap F1 Live. Let's see here. There we go. Go ahead and say something, Christina.
Party.
All right.
Something other than party?
Yeah, I was just testing audio levels, just make sure everything was running smooth. Hello everybody. Christina was just telling me about something to do with Disney and the Christmas time
that just
themes.
Makes me cry. Like, I don't know what Christmas movies just make me happy, but they also make me inexplicably just like emotional. Actually, it's not even inexplicably. I know why it makes me emotional. It's just the holidays and everybody is willing to like do so much for each other. Why can't we be nice like that all year round?
Well, you had said something like,
the secret is twinkle lights.
Why do they try to make us sad at the holidays? And
they just tug on your emotional strings so much.
But isn't that the model now? Like, my girlfriend watches a lot of Desperate Housewives and or any reality show where that Andy Cohen guy interviews people afterwards, and they sit in a little round table thing, and it's all the interviews and conversations and narratives seem to be surrounded by like, let's get like into a sad emotional space because that's what's going to resonate with viewers more than a joyous one. So tell me about this hardship you had. Tell me about this. I just feel like that's a more used narrative.
I hate shows like that
too. Me too.
I can't. My big thing is like, why are you publicly airing all of this sadness? That's not actually the healthy way to deal with it. Like, go. Like, why are you monetizing your tears? Just go talk to a therapist. You guys make enough money for that. Like, holy Toledo. Like, why are you trauma dumping on cable network? Like, no.
There's easily, I want to ballpark it at a 15-year age gap between you and I, and it's comforting to know that generationally there's still people that can share that view about reality television. So
yeah,
I'm 100%
reality television that I'm all for is like, nah, let them be like mean, catty, and like rude to each other. But none of this heartfelt, emotional sob stuff. Bring back the Jersey Shore nonsense. That's what reality television was meant to be, and that's how it should stay.
Below Decks. Have you watched any of that?
Complete and utter nonsense. Did I watch what?
Below Decks. It's a yachting show. Oh,
I know what it is.
Okay.
Like it started coming on once I no longer had access to like TLC or anything like that.
Okay.
So, in theory, now I do have access to some of the reality stuff, but I don't.
We'll have a whole separate show all about reality shows. Today we're here to talk about the Brazilian Grand Prix. Caroline couldn't make it, so we actually have a question right off the bat. This would be perfect for you, Christina. Can you explain how Alex Albon got 20th place when Charles didn't even make it to the starting lap? Shouldn't he have? Yeah. How was there a 20th space if Charles wasn't even in the race?
I would assume it's because of my big assumption would be that neither Albon nor Charles crossed that timing line that is towards the end of the main straight. And so neither of them was counted. And since Charles's qualifying order was higher up, he was placed higher up. That would be my assumption. I would have to double check that, but that would be the only logical thing, because it rarely, sometimes it doesn't follow anything logical. It's literally just, when did cars cross whatever arbitrary line that the FIA have decided. So that is my best guess estimate. It's an educated guess, though.
It sounds about right. Like, it sounds like it would come down to a technical thing the computer spits out, as well as sometimes I'm sure humans just have to make a decision and be like, put the name on the board. But it matters.
It would make sense Charles turned 20th, but it will probably come down to a timing line thing, yes. Because Albon's car crashed out like right at the side of the main straight, like right there. He was not far down like Magnussen was.
Isn't there Isn't there a safety car line?
The second safety car line is where the pit lane and the track merge together.
That's after turn 3.
Yes, like that's way down there. So it wouldn't have been that line. That was the line they were using for safety car purposes and like lining on the main starting grid. But for I'm imagining that, actually, hold on. I have a picture actually in my possession that might answer this question. Because I was looking into a whole bunch of just like Brazil start line things. Yeah.
Right there.
So there's safety car
line
line 1. Yeah, I can't find any other lines that would be a time record thing, but it might just be as simple as, I'd have to go and look at it for sure, of what other timing lines they have. Because sometimes they also have subsectors. Like, it's not just sector 1, 2, 3. It might also not be the safety car line. It might just be the timing sectors.
Gotcha.
Which I have never seen, or I actually haven't looked for a full schematic of what that looks like on this particular track. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a legit question, though.
Yeah. If you
watch, timing line, probably.
If you watch via multi-viewer, I think multi-viewer breaks it out the laps by mini sectors as well when you're looking at the data screen.
You can, yes.
Yeah. It was a sprint weekend, our last one of the year.
Forget what even happened in the sprint race.
Hamilton went ham early and lost his tires. Yeah. And that's the real big thing I remember from that. I think are you done with sprint races? Are you kind of feeling like they're not really serving a purpose? Or are you? Not
particularly. My big pet peeve is that they want to do sprint races. Okay, cool. But they keep choosing tracks that are very ill-suited to a sprint race. If you want to do a sprint race, you have to be doing them at these short tracks, so that way the cars are actually going through those good overtaking zones a number of times. Like somewhere like Spa, they can go through the good overtaking zones like half of the amount of times than they would somewhere here like Brazil. So in this case, if you want to make the argument for having sprint races, you have to pick the appropriate venue for that, and they haven't been. Additionally, my big pet peeve as well is that I like the idea of, yes, including more competitive sessions on a weekend, because the current main setup is that you have 3 practice sessions out of 5 total sessions. So the majority of the time that cars are on track, it's not competitive, which is fine if you're a data nerd. That is perfectly acceptable. But the majority of people are not. The majority of people just want to see the cars go vroom, tire to tire, wheel to wheel. Like, that is the thing. So I think they need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of, okay, we want to add a 3rd competitive session. What could that look like? I feel like they're getting too hung up on it being a sprint race that has no pit stops and that's only 100 kilometers, when realistically, there are other options that could give us something else to watch. They've just got hung up on an idea that's just not working.
Have you seen any indication that teams are treating the sprint as more of a practice session to learn about race
Yes.
pace and learn about the Grand Prix and not really concern
100%.
themselves with. Have you seen them talk about that? I haven't seen anything to that effect.
Aston Martin did that at
Okay.
Coda. Like, pretty blatantly, they turned the whole weekend almost into a practice session. Both their
And
cars.
That's
Like,
what led them to just remove a bunch of upgrades and revert back to an older version of the car this weekend.
yeah. Like, it was between Mexico, there was a lot of things that Aston Martin needed to change. And I'm glad they did, because it was well worth the result.
AlphaTauri scored their first sprint points.
Yeah, go Yuki. Go Yuki. Boop, 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 yoints. I'm very happy for him.
I was
That's good to
impressed with
see.
Ricardo.
Yeah, he did what he did. Like, I'm sorry, but we know Daniel Ricciardo is good. And it feels like my big annoyance right now is that the AlphaTauri admin recently changed. Post Canada, the guy Josh who was in charge left, and I have somebody new. And whoever it is like, I don't suspect it was up to them. I suspect it was from like the higher ups, but there seems to have been a decision made that you prioritize any media that has Daniel Ricciardo in it. So all of Yuki's like getting points or any of the context being added for why he didn't set a fast lap time, none of that gets really mentioned. But anytime Daniel Ricciardo does so much as like breathe, it's like, look at what he did. And so right now I'm just like, it's not Daniel, but I am slightly annoyed when I hear Daniel Ricciardo's name because I'm just like, for fudge sakes, like he's driving exactly how you expect Daniel Ricciardo to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Like he hasn't done anything actually spectacular. He's literally just done exactly what is expected out of him.
He made some bold moves in Mexico, I thought.
Oh no, he did. But he did exactly, but that's the thing, is those bold moves are what I expect out of Daniel Ricciardo, which is why I don't feel like it's something spectacular that needs to be applauded. It's kind of just like, he did exactly what you would expect Daniel Ricciardo to do. Whereas with Yuki, it's kind of like he's been on a journey this year of leadership, of having new different teammates every other week kind of a thing, of not having a good time in Mexico. And here he is like putting out a really, really good performance, and it's not fully being appreciated, which is where I'm kind of like, seriously? Really? Like,
Stephen M.A. Says that he's pretty sure Logan Sargent said during an interview this weekend that Williams was treating the sprint like a test session as well. And I imagine that's like anybody who's massively out of the points. If you're 10th and below, starting 10th and below, it's P3.
You might as well.
I'm sorry, it's FP3 for you.
Yeah. Like,
all right. What do we think the disparity between Piastri and Norris's performance was due to? Was that the car or was that them?
it's both. At the end of the day, Norris's car has been getting damage like round after round after round. He's been quite unlucky. But at the end of the day, even if he did not have the damage, Norris would still be coming out on top because he's in his 5th year in Formula One. He knows how to manage tires in a way that Piastri just hasn't grasped yet, and that he will get eventually, but he's still a rookie. Like, you should never expect that Piastri would regularly do better than Norris. On average, Lando will still always be better. Like, that's just all what it is. Individual days, Piastri might have a better one. But overall, nah. He'll still be Norris being one for a long haul.
All right. As far as the race goes, I was a little more impressed with the Grand Prix than the sprint, I think, overall. And that's not even counting the amazing finish for P3. But even before it even started, we lose Leclare, and I mean, people were kind of losing their minds over it, and everything I read and I saw, there was a hydraulic issue that Carlos had also had recently that plagued him. Did you see anything to indicate he maybe just made a mistake and they're trying to cover it up?
No, every single report that I've read, every single thing that I've seen has been, I do think that they did add some clarification. It was specifically losing power to the steering wheel, lost power steering, and engine power. So that was the specific failure that we got a little bit more detail into. But no, like the way that the car spun out very specifically, it's kind of like, no, that is not a driver losing control. That is just the car not turning and flying. So absolutely brutal for him. Nothing but sadness and ennui.
So I just pulled up something. Michael Sully, you had asked about how Albon got 20th. I don't know where this Google result is getting their information, probably Formula1.com, but it does show Leclerc is 20th here and Albon is 19th, if that
Okay.
makes...
So maybe it was just a wonky timing screen.
Yeah, because it does indicate that Leclerc was DNS, whereas Albon was DNF. So
yeah,
there's that.
Maybe it was where the cars... Sometimes the timing loops do something wonky, or not even the timing loop, but the GPSs. So if you move the car at a certain point, it'll keep recording stuff. So
oh yeah,
who knows?
I wonder if that's ever happened where they've had the car on one of those cranes and they're moving it around and it's clocking timing lines along the way.
Yeah, then they just have to go manually and remove those data points or something like that.
Because that does affect. I mean, it doesn't matter as much, but it will affect long-term stats and records of what happened. So who was your personal driver of the day from the Grand Prix?
Fernando.
Yeah.
100% Fernando. Like that defense and then that waiting for the last minute to attack. Brilliant. So good. Like he just put out such a great drive, especially in a car that's been being so finicky, and that as much as they have fixed things, it is still nowhere near being, well, it's close to being, but it's not quite a top 3 car even. It is still like 4th or 5th conservatively, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was just phenomenal to see him absolutely pulling that car as far as it could possibly go and doing everything. Like he left nothing out there. Ugh. I screamed at the television so loudly. Like there was a lot of cussing during that last lap. Oh my gosh.
I do feel like if you were to remove Red Bull from the equation and just look at the rest of the grid, the most of this year has felt like what I imagine it felt like in certain parts of like the 80s and 90s before Ferrari took that dominant string. But from track to track, certain cars have different, are stronger here than they are there. And you see that in a wider array with the rest of the grid. And it's fun to watch that variety from week to week if you just kind of close one eye and ignore, P1 on the leaderboard. And yeah, it's just nice to be there because, like, having been a fan who's like started becoming like a big fan at the end of the Mercedes dominance and the beginning of the Red Bull, like it's nice to see this, one day Alfa Romeo's like topping the charts during practice, and there's hope it could be a spicy weekend. Like that's just fun to have that kind of variety week to week.
Definitely. It's and that's my one pet peeve right now actually, is that there are so many on-track battles that are going on. We are seeing so many really good things, but, and here's the pet peeve, not that we're actually seeing battles, love seeing the battles, but the broadcast direction has gotten a little shoddy. There's been a couple of moments, noticeably in the last couple of races, where you have something very spicy going on track, and they cut away to something else, and they don't even do picture-in-picture. Like,
that happened yesterday.
What is going on for you guys? Like...
Yeah.
Excuse me. We know that Max is winning. It's fine. We've seen it a bajillion times. Cut away to him for maybe like 2 seconds. But stay with the good stuff. Keep that picture in picture 100%, no matter what. Like,
yeah, Crofty and Brundle commented on that. They were in the middle of commentating a battle and they cut away. And they're like, we'll try and keep you informed of what's going on there while they show you this car all by itself on track.
Yeah, it's
Do they do a lot of picture-in-picture? I don't feel like I've seen a lot of live mini picture with the replay.
I've got a lot of side-by-sides.
Okay.
That's
and you're
what I
on
get
F1 TV, right?
I watch F1 TV, yes. I don't watch
Okay.
Sky. I watch F1 TV. Hmm. Yeah, I like it. A
Is
bit
Sky an
better.
option for you in
Yeah,
Canada?
it is. I can just switch. Yeah, you just
Okay.
switch with broadcaster you have. But I like F1 TV. I like
Mhm.
those guys. They're good.
Um, Stroll finished 5th.
Yeah,
This is the first time he's
which is
been in the
higher than
top
I
10.
expected.
Right?
It's like better. It's much better than I expected. Like he held on well. The thing is, the most frustrating part is that he's so wildly inconsistent. He can have these very good days that you're like, where did you pull that from? But a lot of the times, he's kind of just there on track, and it just leaves you wondering what has to change so that way we can up that consistency of good days. Because if you're capable of doing this, why have you been doing that?
Well, I mean, we haven't been saying for the last few weeks or months that Stroll has been kind of falling in the back. We've been saying Aston Martin's been falling in the back. Like,
It's been both though.
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like I don't think
Yeah.
it's been that he hasn't been performing the last few months. I feel like the car has just been dragged because Alonso was back there with him for at Coda.
Not in the same way.
No.
Not in the same way at all. Alonso has still regularly been like 5, 6 positions up on Stroll. Like a noticeable gap has always been between those cars for these last couple like 10-ish races, I want to say. It's been drastic. It's been extremely noticeable. Especially the number of times where Stroll is regularly out in Q1 and Alonso makes it all the way to Q3. Like even with the bad car, that's still kind of been happening.
Yeah. You're a Gasly fan. How did you feel about Gasly's performance?
He did a very solid job this weekend. He was working well, he was defending well, he was gaining positions really well. He's one of those drivers that I always feel like he kind of just got lost in the shuffle. Red Bull promoted him too soon and then demoted him, so he was the one who paid the consequence for their bad decision. And
Mm-hmm.
then he really didn't get any development for a couple of years. But the thing is, you were able to see how good he was in that AlphaTauri for those first couple of years because the car was decent. He was putting the car up in like fourth and fifth regularly in 2021, I think it was. And he won a race. He got a podium. And now he's in an Alpine, which is a decent car, but a team that's kind of a bit of a wreck. And it just leaves me very frustrated because I feel like should be having a career that's a lot closer to what Carlos has, where you're, a supporting driver maybe, but you're still up there in one of the good teams, still regularly getting podiums and regularly getting points. And I do need him to do better at his race starts. Those things are still utterly hot garbage about 50% of the time. Maybe I'll be nicer and not say hot garbage, but they're not great, okay? They leave me quite disappointed a lot of the time. So it was nice to see him having a pretty solid weekend. All of his performances since the end of summer have been very nice. It's been good to see.
Steve comments, I think Stroll is under pressure to perform or else lose the seat with Aston's entry into endurance racing. I think there's been a preparation from, I can't see that word, Daddy Stroll for Lance to exit F1 and put him into endurance racing.
Well, as long as that's a conversation, my big thing is that there should never be a fully guaranteed seat, with some obvious exceptions, like someone like Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, where it's kind of just like, yeah, give them a seat forever. That makes sense. But for most drivers, it doesn't make sense to do that. You have to have, everybody should be having kind of that axe swinging over their heads of like, you have to do a good job. If not, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would seem ridiculous to me for him not to have that. And
Mm-hmm.
especially because Lawrence Stroll, as much as I'm sure he loves his son, you can see how competitive he is as a person. That comes through when you hear interviews and you hear statements. He's not a guy who likes to lose. And as much as he loves his kid, at a certain point gets to be, no, I have to be the owner of this dang team and make the tough decision. So I hope that's what's been going on behind the scenes, because as great as job security is for most of us, they are not most of us. And, a little bit of stress should be fine for them.
Something I had up on the screen for the viewers while we were talking there. Verstappen's latest win means he'll soon break a 71-year-old F1 record. Apparently, if he finishes the season out above 75% in terms of wins, he'll beat Alberto Ascari's record of 75% wins in 1952. Yeah. But it says here under F1's Formula 2 rules, which I don't know what it sounds.
There's a couple of years
weird.
where the regulations were wonky, so it's like there's a bunch of caveats because of how long the sport's been going on and how much things have changed. A lot of these stats both mean a lot and mean only something.
Is there anything to be concerned? Pardon me. Is there anything you think there to be concerned about with how that tire flew down the track and hit a bunch of cars? Is there?
Yes.
Is there? Okay, explain.
The thing is, we've seen tire failures kind of like that a handful of times now, just this year. The Alpine crash, I'd have to go back and look at that, but I think that one had tire damage in that sense that it flew off. We had Qatar, Lewis's wheel flung off again like that. Mm-hmm. So you can't just say this is an isolated incident where the tire got hit just in a specific funky way. This wasn't a particularly funky accident. It was an accident where cars just hit up against each other. And you have to be prepared for that eventuality. They do have to strengthen that tire wall. That was also one of the things that was leading to the tires failing so drastically in Qatar. And yes, Qatar had extreme conditions, but the tire construction is definitely one of the contributing factors. Because that wasn't the compounds that were the issue. Well, that was a separate issue. But the sidewalls and how it wasn't strong enough to stay latched onto the main hub was a big thing. And just the way that you can see, in this case, I think it might have been slightly different because you do see that the tire from that car stayed in one big rubberized piece. But I do think it's still worth it to look into why are so many of these tires just busting off essentially and breaking physically apart.
It seems that the wider the tire wall is, the more room for leverage to rip it off you have for the tire itself. You have more
surface area
for it to just peel off. When you have a low profile tire, there's not as much rubber to leverage to roll it off the rim like that and tear off just the intact, rubber ring. So I don't know if that's something they're going to be able to get rid of unless they redesign how the rim overlaps with the rubber to kind of hold it. Because there's a bead in there that will seat into a little groove, but maybe some kind of overlapping with the rim. I don't know. I'm not a tire engineer.
There's also a huge chunk of those cars that went flying up over the barrier into the pit lane. Did you not see that on the broadcast?
I'm sorry, tires or just debris?
No, just debris, just chunk of car.
Okay, went into
yeeted up over, not into the stands, thankfully, because those people have a different insurance. They had enough trouble, but in the pit lane, they have legit insurance. They assume a lot more risks with their lives than spectators do. But yeah, there was just a shower of car came fluttering down, and I really want to know, what did it hit in the pit lane? Where did it land in the pit lane?
So we were in Brazil. The F1 was in Brazil. Before that, Mexico, and before that, it feels like 6 months ago, we were in Austin.
Yeah.
And they are rehashing some stuff from Austin, where I believe Haas is petitioning to have some track limit stuff reviewed. What are your thoughts on that?
It makes sense to do. Quite frankly, you can see from a number of footage angles that there were cars that were repeatedly going off. I think turn 6 specifically was the review I saw. So if random fans are able to pull together that footage, then yeah, most likely guaranteed Haas is going to be able to go in with additional information and say, nah, we should review this. Especially with certain cars, I haven't gone and done a deep dive on all the cars that have been called in. That's Williams, Aston Martin, and Red Bull have all been called in to have their stuff reviewed on
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday. So that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on, because it could go either way at this point. It could go either way. They've track limits is something this year that I'm just kind of sick and tired of hearing about, but you have to be consistent. And if they have evidence and better video footage that can show that, yeah, no, people were going over the limits and you didn't penalize them, then yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
have to give out those penalties, because they've been giving them out right, left, and center this year.
I thought they had simplified it. Was it last year where it was just like white line? There's
They
a
had
white
simplified
line.
it, but
Yeah.
the big problem now is not the definition, it's can the stewards accurately see the car and have a good camera angle to look at. So that's going to be the big discussion here. That's going to be the big thing with this right of review, is Haas is going to bring in video footage and the stewards are going to have to look at it and say, yep, those were track limits, or yeah, here are other angles that we were looking at initially on that weekend that show something different. It's all going to come down to the video footage,
How
which
long until they install
realistically,
cameras on the cars that have, they can see all four corners of the car?
that's
And
what they should already have. For how many cameras they have on board, it's a little bit ridiculous that that's not one of the things that they're just monitoring.
hmm
Definitely a little strange there, but you know.
I'm going to skip that one because it deals with Massey or Massa. Sorry, not Massey, Massa. Ooh.
Either way, conversations I'm not in the mood for.
No, we're not getting into it. We're not getting into that.
I just nah.
We are anti Crashgate and 21. That's
Just
discussing it.
enough of my time.
Autosport came out and said that it has an article talking about possible changes to the sprint format we were discussing before. Where
Yep.
Horner says, I think there needs to be more to it. We have just won a sprint race and nobody quite knows what to do because all the focus is already on tomorrow's Grand Prix. It's like you've won a long run and got a medal for it. And then that's the end of the quote. Isn't that the goal of... Okay.
Yeah. But and the thing is, other series have double headers and they've figured out how to do it. So it kind of makes me wonder, why can't Formula One figure it out? Like IndyCar, Formula E, they all do double headers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine, and people are used to it, and people have accepted it, and people rejoice in it and have fun with it. But somehow Formula One can't figure it out. But again, Formula One is different from all the kind of motorsports because it's constructors challenge.
But you're against the tactic of reversing any portion of the grid.
No, that's stupid. Straight up. It doesn't make sense to do with Formula One cars because they have such a performance difference. You're literally just going to create a traffic jam of the slower cars up at the front. Like, no.
I still think the relay race idea would work great, where
I think that that would be too, no, I like the idea. I like the idea. I think it's really fun, but I think it's way too campy and like kind of corny for Formula One. I think that they would hate doing that. They'd be like, why? No. Like, I think that's something they would personally hate.
Well, they can't do what you do at, like, is it Le Mans and other 24-hour series where they have them run to the car and get in
Yeah.
and then start the car and then go. There was one, I think,
Yeah.
in Tasmania or New Zealand recently where they added another. I think they had to run like a quarter mile to their car.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and then start the race.
I'm sorry, but I'm imagining how many of these Formula One drivers would trip and faceplant, because you know there's a handful of them who would trip and faceplant. There's a couple of them that would slip while trying to jump into their cars. Like, it's getting really comical in my head. Oh my gosh.
Well, and they have to strap in. Like,
Yeah, so
you
you'd have
can't
to
do
have
that
team members
alone.
waiting at the car to strap you in. Yeah. It's I don't know. I know they like sprints. They want to make sprints happen, but it's very much turning into like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not gonna happen. That's where we're at this point.
Look, I'm
like
42 years old and I'm still trying to make fetch happen.
It's like the sprint race is that butt ugly ankle length jean skirt that all the fashion brands are trying to make happen. They are butt ugly. Send them back to the factory and shame yourself. Like, go stand in a corner, designers who thought that making those were a good idea. Jeez.
I'm trying to find a video of that, them running to their car. If I find it, I'll post it in our Insta stories. But it was funny just watching people book it for easily a quarter to a half mile. So,
Hey, as a driver, I'd be so pissed about that. Like, I signed up to not have to run. I hate running.
my feet are for pedals.
Why?
Pedals
Yeah,
only.
it's horizontal running. No vertical, just horizontal.
All right. Well, any viewers, any final questions? Christina, final thoughts on the Brazilian Grand Prix?
I'm tired. It's been a triple header. I have no more thoughts.
I'm
Like,
with
triple headers are cruel to everybody, and next year we have 2 of them back to back.
Yeah, I think on next week's podcast we should talk about anything but F1. We should take a week off and just talk about something else that interests us. If you have any suggestions, listeners and viewers, of what we want to chat about, movies, Pokemon, your pets.
At what point does a soup become a stew?
Oh, that's so good. Here's one I heard recently.
Yeah.
When people say, "Oh, we're back to square one." How many squares are there? Have you ever heard of anyone getting to square two? Come on. Grassroots racing as next week's topic. You know what? I have been wanting to talk about motorcycle chariot racing, these small town dirt tracks, and stuff like that for a while. That's definitely possible. There's like a 2% chance we'll have somebody to interview that'll be interesting, and then we'll have to talk a little bit about F1, but we'll see. But that concludes today's live reaction to the Brazilian Grand Prix. And keep an eye out for Wednesday's release of the regular podcast. Also, our Instagram, go to our Instagram. We are holding a contest with our good friend Tom Glover over at the Old Art House. He does these amazing vintage style paintings of Formula One cars and tracks and scenes. And we're doing a giveaway. He's got a new painting for the Las Vegas Grand Prix coming up. We're giving away 3 prints of his new painting. He's completing it as we get closer to the race because he wants to keep... He's trying to put like the most timely, relevant stuff in the painting, apparently. So he's doing it now. So I think the actual what it looks like will get revealed after the winners are announced. They're not even knowing what they win. Have you looked at what he has? Have you seen his Braun GP one?
Yes. It
Yeah.
looks very nice.
I'm thinking
like
of
all his
adding
stuff.
it to my collection because I got a whole Braun GP section here. But with the documentary coming out, I'm contemplating getting that one. But head over to our Instagram, enter to win in that contest, and 3 lucky winners will be announced the morning after the Vegas Grand Prix.
Whoop whoop, which I am going to. I'm so excited.
That's a whole topic for our checkered flag today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Oh wait, I have to end this.
Makes me look like I have flabby chicken wing shirt.
Oh.
Hey.